Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies for the slight delay in starting. There are no fire drills planned. If the fire alarm is activated, which is a continuous siren with a flashing red light, please leave the building immediately following the fire exit signs. Can I start with apologies for absence and substitutions?
Thank you, Chair. We've had apologies for absence from Councillor Scott, who's been substituted by Councillor White, Councillor Skinner, who's been substituted by Councillor Stretfield, and Councillor Lehman, who's been substituted by Councillor Shea.
Thank you. Does any member have any declarations of interest not already registered? No. Actions from the previous meeting, if any? Are none? Oh, sorry. Minutes. To agree the minutes of the meeting of the committee held on the 7th of January 2026 as a correct record. Does everyone agree the minutes? Happy with the minutes for those that were there? Yes. So I will sign those as a correct record. Thank you. So item 4 is councillor absence request arrangements. Martin.
Thank you very much. So I won't talk for long. You will have read the report. It's a report recommending a working group to propose arrangements for the approval of absences under section 85. Members will see from the report that there was previous work done by Councillor Pett and a working group in 2019. Councillor Scott was on that, but she's an absent member today. Members will also see Appendix 2, which is a note I've written. It's to form the basis, if you would like, of any discussions at the working group if formed. No decision is proposed for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was just confused as to the working group details for 2019, why they were in there. Is that what you were saying was to form a basis, or?
Through you, Chair, yes. The last time this was looked at was 2019. And the note that I've written in Appendix 2 is essentially drawn from that work. It has no other relevance other than it being the same piece of work, but 7 years ago.
Thank you. Chair, if it's okay if I just come back then to say, I do have some comments on the proposed changes. Is now the right time to speak of them or to speak to the working group separately?
Through you, Chair. So the proposal is that a working group be formed, and then you can make as many comments as through the Chair as you'd like. Ignore altogether what I've written, if you wish. But I would suggest that forming the working group is the business for today, really.
For those that weren't here last time, may wonder why this has come up. I think there were some questions about the absences of the two councillors who we were looking at, and there were questions about whether we should have 6 months or whether we should have more information before we made a decision. So I think the decision was to consider it in more detail, which hence is why Martin has suggested a working group. I mean, we don't have to have a working group. Obviously, it was 7 years ago when the last working group was undertaken. It's in the gift of this committee to decide whether you would like one or not. Can I come to Councillor Shea first and then Councillor Clack? Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you.
Well, actually, I'd probably rather hear from Councillor Shaneaway, because from my point of view, I think it's okay anyway. So I know the discussions are for the working party, but it seems to me it's worth us having a quick discussion now as to whether we actually think it's worthwhile or whether there's enough already stuff in the Constitution that means it's okay. But obviously, if people disagree, then that might then mean a working party.
Councillor Shea.
Thank you. I'm perfectly comfortable with the idea of a working party being formed, but perhaps that's easy to say as somebody who's only substituting today. A couple of thoughts occurred to me reading the papers. Obviously, there were two members whose absence was being considered last time. We've had others brought before governance over the last few years. And I'm just wondering whether the working group, if it is formed, might, in addition to Martin's paper, consider the use of technology to allow members who might have an absence to be able to continue to participate, even whilst under an authorised absence. So, for example, we have a councillor at the moment who is unable to vocalise his thoughts, but is able to use technology to do so. There may come a time where his or others in another case in the future might need to have that absence authorised, and the council might agree to, but we might want to still continue to hear their views and their opinions expressed. And we have technology now that wouldn't have been available in 2019, for example, when this was last looked at by a working group, which would allow continued participation through Teams, through Zoom and other technologies. And I think that would be worth considering in conjunction with the authorised absences. Thank you.
Just going to bring Martin in to.
Well, I don't disagree or argue with that, but just worth reminding members that not long after 2019, special provisions were made to allow remote attendance by members, which Parliament deliberately deleted. So we can be under no doubt that to be here and vote, you have to be here and vote. I think the LGA has lobbied or at least taken opinion on whether that should be put back in place. That's for people other than me. But I'm only saying that to remind people that we did have it. It worked at that time and then was withdrawn.
I think I absolutely understand that, of course. I think it's worth perhaps having a placeholder there, knowing that it is still under discussion more broadly, but equally, if there were people who were unable to participate and might still not be able to vote, but might have valuable contributions to make to discussions, and to whom it might actually be valuable for them as well to be able to continue to participate. And I think also about we had an application a couple of years ago for a member who was working overseas for an extended period of time, and again, that you might still have valuable input from members without them necessarily being able to vote, but for them to be able to participate in meetings, and for the council to be able to benefit from their input, whilst knowing that we're also authorising their extended absence. Thank you.
Councillor Stretfield.
Thank you. My only point was I broadly agree that the working group is a good idea, even though I'm a substitute, and I would happily participate in it from outside. But I think the announcement in early July on LGR should be included, and we'll try and align ourselves with the kind of predominant view of other councils who we get put in order to get used to working practices that are across what is likely to be the new unitary authority, whatever that is, should be included in the terms of reference of that working group.
Councillor Clack.
I presume if because this is in relation to the absence, so that's determined by legislation. So, but there's nothing to stop a member who can't physically attend, presumably listening in and and making contributions. So that's a sort of a separate matter, isn't it, from this? Yeah, and I remember that instance from a couple of years ago when a councillor was away, and I think it was being suggested they wouldn't be back until April, and they was in the country that week. So that worked out quite nicely.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to point something out, sort of in response to Councillor Shea and Councillor Clack's comments, then, that in the case of an absence, that there's nothing stopping someone to join online and still contribute. And I fully agree with that sentiment. I think it's the right thing. However, the item that we'll be discussing later could be contradict that, because the other part of the Constitution states that if that person then sends a substitute, because they can't be there to actually vote, then they wouldn't be able to speak online. So they wouldn't be able to contribute. They could only watch. So I think this is directly in contradiction to that point. So I think we need to consider them in parallel. Thanks.
I think there is a we could look at allowing that as if someone is genuinely ill, but they do, and maybe they're ill sometimes, or they're okay at other times. So we're not sure whether they're going to make the 6 months. We could allow that in certain exceptional circumstances. I think the substitutions might only be because, you can't go, but then you can. So we had an issue with one of our councillors today who wasn't able to come, then could come, but so had unsubstituted herself, and now. So I think that can be looked at slightly separately. I think as an exception because of the nature of the illness. So maybe the working party, if everyone feels that that's what they want to do, that could be one aspect of the work of the working party group. Councillor Shay.
Thank you. Another question, if I may, that I just jotted down as I was reading papers earlier. And this is as much for my information. It's not a challenge anyway. Just seeking to understand. Under item paragraph 5 of Martin's note, talks about members remaining entitled to receive allowances and special responsibility allowances during absence. I think I was a little surprised to see that the special allowances would continue if somebody were on prolonged leave from the role. Is that standard, normal? How is that captured in legislation, if any, please?
It's a good question because the first part is, I don't know what's standard across local government for this, but the legislation is that we have to have a scheme. Our scheme is, perhaps I should explain something else. The work done in 2019 started off as work on maternity leave. So it's not surprising then that members felt that elected members who needed time off for maternity shouldn't be penalised. And we are allowed to have this provision in here saying that there is no deduction. The allowance or the remuneration panel could propose changes. We could put in place changes, but it would have to be mindful of situations like that.
Thank you. That's helpful to understand.
Councillor Manston.
Thank you, Chair. Because most of the points that I was going to raise have already now been raised, I just thought I'd add my final point, because I had Councillor Shay's point there on my list. And the final concern that I had was that it's possible for the leave to be indefinite, which I felt was maybe, I think that there should be a review date given ongoing, even if it continues to be extended. I think it is worth having that review date as opposed to the option for indefinite leave. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone have any more Councillor Hassan?
With regards to the working group, is there any merit in waiting for the LGR announcements to be made so that we know which way we're going? It's so that we don't look at repeating ourselves.
Through the chair, I'm in your hands on that. I've got some dates here though, which might inform that point. So the next meeting of this committee is the 26th of January 2027. So there's nothing to say that the working group can't take place in, say, November. And we'll know this time next month, you know, in July, so in 6 weeks' time. So I think it may be a good point, but one that in the run of things doesn't matter.
I would just say that there seems to be a general view that we should form one. So as one of the few non-substitutes here, you know, I'm already happy to put myself forward. So I think maybe we just set one up, and we've got a lot of time to do it.
Councillor Haslam, did you want to come back?
I was going to ask then, if we do that, can we then if we do form a working group based on the time of the next meeting, that we look to actively start the working group once we know the outcome of LGR, and make it conditional on that, so that we apply that on the basis of what we know rather than what we don't know. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds perfectly sensible. Martin's given me some slight amendment to the recommendation. So originally it said there's a working group of 3 members is formed with the sole remit of drafting and recommending arrangements to the committee and council, and add, but with consideration given to the greater use of electronic means of participation and consideration of alignment due to local government reorganisation. Does that make sense? Happy with that? Yeah. Show of hands. Thank you. So we've agreed that we just need to working party of 3 members. How do we?
I'll answer it. I'll answer live. So
Thank
through
you.
you, Chair.
Yes.
So a former leader undertook that working groups would be proportional. So in answer to your question, it doesn't legally have to be, but I think we've come to that position generally. It's only 3 members because we don't have a lot of members to work with, and it should be fewer than half of the number. So that's why it's only 3.
Councillor Stretfield.
Does it limit only to those who are not substitutes, rather, who are members of the committee, or can it be participated more widely, just by members of the council?
And do we need to make a decision today, or?
So through you, Chair. So to answer the question, in my view, it could be more widely, but probably better that it's the governance committee. I think legally it can be wider. Does it have to be today? No, certainly not. And in fact, if maybe we're looking for a political balance, then we'll have to ask group leaders perhaps for their nominees. That might be a way of doing it. For you.
So are we happy to so we've agreed to set it up, and then it'd be down to the group leaders to nominate their preferred person. Councillor Haslam.
Sorry to ask another question.
Yes.
Will the chair of the working group be elected by the working group itself?
Yeah.
Not here today, as we don't know who the members are.
No, exactly. Yeah. Everyone happy with that? Okay, thank you very much. Item 5, adjustment to the rules governing motions on notice, pages 11 to 12. Martin, would you like to start off?
Okay, so thank you, Chair. So through you, the leader has asked for this report. The intention is to propose an addition to the Constitution saying that a motion may be rejected by the Chief Executive, essentially if it's outside strictly council business. I won't repeat what the report says, but it's paragraph 3. Members may wish to think about whether it should be extended to questions or not. Or if questions, then either by members of the public or not. But I wasn't asked to bring that to this committee. I was asked to bring an adjustment to motions to the committee. The change can be made, and it is for you as a committee to recommend to council one way or the other. I suppose you may choose to make their recommendation as well.
Councillor Manston.
Thank you, Chair. I think the meaning of this amendment makes sense fully. However, it feels a bit of a waste of time to me, because it appears to me that the Constitution already provides for this. So point 20.3 says that motions must be about matters for which the council has responsibility or which affect the district. And 20.5 allows the chief exec to reject a motion that is improper. So it feels like a bit of a waste of time to just add more wording that does the same thing. And then also just to add, on petitions, our constitution does state that if a petition is about something over which the council has no direct control, then the council will consider making representations on behalf of the community to the relevant body. So it seems to imply that, you know, it's not improper for us to, you know, for someone to suggest something that actually isn't within our remit. We can always see what we can do. But my main point is that the Constitution already provides for this. Thank you.
Well, yes, the Constitution does have those provisions in there. I can't speak for the leader, but I think he was looking for something more explicit, perhaps, in the Constitution. As for petitions, I think the point, again, may be that but considering the petitions provisions are, they are replicated in Kent, but they're quite old, as we've noted before. Maybe that those are out of the control of the council, whereas our own members and our own constitution is something we can write. But yes, the times we've done that, and perhaps by way of explanation, is usually highways. We receive a petition about a highway matter that isn't for our JTB, but it's for the Highway Authority. That would be an example of it. But yes, I can't disagree at all with the earlier points. I'm in your hands here as to how to deal with it. I brought the proposal. I do know that the proposal is has been adopted elsewhere in Kent.
Councillor Shay.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Manson. I don't think it is needed that the Constitution does what it is it's already driving to do, and I think I would regret the possibility that councillors may not be capable of deciding in debate at council meetings whether or not it's something that it's responsible for or wants to act upon. I think if there are motions put forward which are capable of being discussed, and for the council to discuss whether or not they want to put forward or lobby on behalf of that motion, then it should have the opportunity to do so rather than it being filtered out in advance. So that would be an anxiety for me. Just to pick up, if I may, on Martin's point just then in terms of what we act on for petitions, my understanding is that anything that goes to JTB is actually a petition to KCC, and that's slightly different rather than a petition to this authority. I think it's a KCC committee, that isn't it? So I think there's a slight nuance in that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Clack.
Yeah, my concern always been about these motions are ones, for instance, which is the typical one, which is motions with regard to Israel. You know, either criticising them or trying to not invest in something which may invest in Israel, etc. And I've generally sort of, I think, tried to maybe raise a point of motion, and those have still been considered to be in order. So what I was looking for with this amendment, but grateful for Councillor Manson for pointing out that broadly the Constitution says it already, is a way to prevent us having to discuss matters which are nothing to do with us whatsoever. As I said, Israel, for instance. So I think that the useful thing, I take the point that perhaps 20.3 does already say the council has responsibility or which affects the district. So I was concerned that even this change might not have prevented such motions. The only thing is that the non-exhaustive example, for instance, there said that a motion relating to a national or international matter, in respect of which the council has no powers, rights or duties. So I suppose the thing is that if this, as worded now, the Constitution stops us discussing Israel, I'm using Israel because that's a common example, then great. If it doesn't, then we need some wording here, and maybe the informative, the non-exhaustive example, then we do need to add that, because then that makes it clear that it isn't about international matters or where Kent County Council invest pensions, and that this should only be about things that actually affect us in our day-to-day lives.
And thank you, and through the chair. I understand that actually that the leader may not have had particular locations geographically in mind. In fact, from my understanding, the concern was to do with asylum hotels, that there was some kind of issue. So I would suggest from that that maybe to think about Israel, and I know you haven't said it's just about Israel or just about asylum hotels, it has to apply to everything. The other point is the Constitution as currently is what has been applied. So if you're of the opinion that the motions that we've had have been fine, then there's been no cause to do this. And I don't recall any time, other than for wording, where we've rejected a motion. I think we've sometimes said you can't have this wording, but we've never said you can't have this concept. To my memory, that is though.
Do you want to come back on that, Councillor?
Yeah, sorry, but that's been my problem. I used the one for Israel because that's the one that's come up, which I've sort of objected to. So if the wording as it mentions doesn't prevent that kind of thing, then I mean, it's going to need probably a stronger wording than that, because I just think that is not something that we should be spending time on, making sort of international political points. Rather us worry about our own residents. So, you know, I mean, it could be that then for me to argue more strongly that the Constitution as currently worded would prevent those type of motions. As I said, that was the only reason why I thought the kind of the informative at the end there was useful, because then that might help with the steer that that kind of topic shouldn't be discussed.
That's straightforward.
Thank you, Chair. I quite understand why that Councillor Clare has the opinion we shouldn't debate those kind of things. But it's one thing to have that opinion as an elected representative. It's quite another to put onto the chief executive the ability or to arbitrate on what should and what shouldn't be discussed in full council, because Councillor Clack's vote against such a motion and the points that he would make in debate should be heard. Absolutely, they should be heard. It shouldn't be, and the motions that might be brought forward on subjects that have tangential consequence for our residents, if they are brought forward, then the public can judge in public whether those motions have weight or not, and the points can be made in public, and the motion will either stand or fall as it's presented. But to place that prior to it coming onto the chief executive as to make the decision not to debate it, and I think the points have been well made that neither the previous wording nor the current wording would prevent those motions coming forward. But I don't think it's in order to promote good governance as this advisory committee, it's not for us, I don't think, to recommend to Cabinet to put onto the chief executive this responsibility. He's already got the responsibility in broad terms in the Constitution, but we have responsibility as elected representatives to debate the motion, make the points, and either pass it or defeat it as the thing that gets voted on, and that's the important aspect of this. That's what's good governance, not preventing it being spoken about.
So Councillor Manson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really interested in this debate because I actually don't recall any motion or question regarding debating Israel. I recall motions and questions regarding how we invest the money of our residents here in Sevenoaks. And so I think if we're pinning this on a motion or a question about Israel, I'd really like to know which one that is, because yeah, I haven't experienced that here. I do recall when within those conversations there has been links to Israel, and I do recall really regrettably Councillor Clack introducing Jewish people into the conversation and there was no reference at all. So I think it's really important that
bring that back to the actual
Sure.
your views on whether this is relevant or not.
Sure. So I think that the comments regarding a discussion around Israel are irrelevant. We have only had motions and questions regarding how we spend money of residents in this district. Thank you.
Councillor Haslam.
Thank you. Just to clarify something that Councillor Stretford said, is this isn't an advisory committee. So just to it's not a big thing, but otherwise I start having kittens because I'm on scrutiny. I can't do both. So I just need to get that correct in my mind. It's just something that is particularly close to my mind, my heart. So it's not necessarily what I'm missing is we have constitution already, we have paragraphs in it, yet the leader still has made a proposal because obviously, and I haven't counselled the leader with regards to this, that there is something missing, so has made a suggestion. Maybe this paragraph in itself is not sufficient. But what I was understanding is that this isn't for, we're not asking for the chief executive to decide whether to hold or withhold a item or motion for council. It is for him to decide, or they, should I say, they to decide whether it is appropriate within the responsibility of the council in its area, not whether it's actually to actually, and there is a distinction there. It's not whether you can speak about it, it's whether it's in the responsibility of the council. And I think that the leader, from my understanding from this, is looking to understand that we only discuss in the motions things which are responsible for the council. And if the wording at the moment doesn't appear to fulfill that requirement to the letter.
Councillor Clack, you want to come back?
Yeah, just on the point of whether the chief executive has to make a decision or not. I mean, it already says that it has to be in relation to the district council sorry, I haven't got a word for it. It's already got to be to do with us. So, you know, if I did a motion on, I don't know, Donald Duck, someone would have to make a decision. So it's not that he's unused to making decisions. I just make that point because I always like to. Yes, there's probably another point I'd like to make, but I won't at the moment. Thank you.
I think so. My question to Martin would be: this extra paragraph, would it make any difference to the constitution? Would it add weight to not being able to debate anything that wasn't in relation to residents in our district?
In answer to that, thank you. I think, well, so far we haven't rejected a motion for the concept. We have rejected wording and asked for rewording and such. But were we to have, you know, without going into perhaps controversial territory, But I do think that other councils have got into hot water where they've ended up debating the location of those who are unfortunate enough to need to seek asylum. And we don't want to be going down that route and then suddenly discovering that we have no powers over where the government puts people who are in that unfortunate state. And I think he's a little concerned that we could eventually find ourselves that way. Though I don't speak for him. All I can say to you is that we haven't used or needed to use the improper rule in my time that I can recall anyway. Certainly something illegal. I can't remember ruling that something's illegal. Improper might be a wider term. I can't remember that either. I suppose it comes down to whether it's thought that boundaries are likely to be pushed in future, perhaps through reasons beyond our control. I can't predict the future.
Councillor Shay.
Thank you. I do understand that anxiety, of course. I think my concern is that perhaps this, actually, we've already got the tools here to influence those motions into something useful and debatable. Motions are already submitted in advance, so there's that opportunity for screening here, and that phrasing on 20.3 already allows the possibility of whether it's the chief executive or other officers to ask members to refine their motions if need be. And if I understand Martin correctly, that is already happening. I am concerned, though, that we might have some unintended consequences here. The drafting as it stands makes it all members' responsibility to ensure that the motions they're putting forward fit this requirement of them being within the responsibility or affecting the district, whereas actually the amendment pushes the responsibility to the chief exec. And I think there's something important about ensuring that we all share the responsibility for ensuring that our time spent in the chamber is spent well, is spent productively, and on things that we can directly influence, control, manage. I'm concerned that we could end up creating a lot of work for the chief executive through this in an unintended way, which would be unfortunate, and take away the personal responsibility on members to ensure that we're behaving in a way that is supportive of the ambition we're hearing here.
Councillor Stretfield.
And I appreciate I think Councillor Shay's points are very good. And I want to add to them by saying that I think if, as much as you can criticise us for talking about the investments around the subjects that Councillor Clack was talking about, this last sentence might also catch our twinning with Kharkiv or the oblast in Ukraine, because it's an area that we have no powers or rights or duties. And so we wouldn't be able to debate that under those circumstances. So we just need to be really careful. My point is, and we may be able to find a way of debating it. I can see the monitoring officer jumping up and down, because there may be a way of shoehorning it in, as there is with all sorts of other things. And we all want to debate it, and we all want to show our support for Ukraine. But it is a good example of where there are some things that are controversial and we wouldn't and are political or more kind of politically divisive, but some areas that we do want to have a say on because they are current and of wide interest to our residents, but over which we don't have the powers, rights or duties. So I just think we need to be really careful before we put that. And as Councillor Shay said, it's a responsibility of all members to make sure that it's to that, and then it's for us all to debate them and to propose the motion and vote on it or defeat it according to our political view, not towards how we govern ourselves.
Oh, Councillor Haslam, sorry.
sorry to come back both to Councillor Shane and to Councillor Stretford. I trying to understand how I don't. I can't see how this is actually changing, taking away the responsibility from the members, because the members still have a responsibility to have any promotion based on the constitution. So that's I don't see anything being taken away from the members in regards to that. And there, even as we have that, say, I don't know how to quite say the chief executive now still has some, or the monitoring officer still has some responsibility to review those decisions, and either the wording. So there is that process in place at the moment, and it's not taking away anything. It's just it's making something more formalized in that it and to make that process there. So I don't understand how this is taking anything away from members. With regards to twinning, surely if you are twinning with someone, there is responsibility here within the district. Therefore, it is relevant to the district, not just outside of the district. But so I just trying to understand how that's the way I would see it. But the trouble is, everything is down to interpretation.
Yes, I think, again, the wording is still for interpretation, isn't it? If substantial rather than just the matters for which the council has responsibility. Ask me, there's a bit of a change, but not a substantial change in my view. So, Councillor Haslam.
And so the other question then is, if the next governance meeting is in January, we can't really, well, can we go back to the leader and say, well, can you put something here which is more substantial, and that so which is more identifiable to us to what the outcome you're trying to achieve, because it won't happen until that time.
Councillor Stretford.
Yeah, I think if the leader felt very strongly about this, and I don't realise the monitoring officer is here and has presented the report on behalf of the leader, but the leader felt very strongly he would be coming to convince us as the governance committee that this was in the absolute best interests of governance of this council, and we do seem to be dancing on the head of quite a small pin in relation to the change in wording, and whether this is the most. I think we can maybe also ask the question: whether this is the most important governance change that we could be considering today. But anyway, that's a different question. I would welcome the leader's view on why this is the thing that he wants to change about the governance of the council.
Councillor Clack.
I suspect the new wording isn't going to make much difference, so it might be better to come back with stronger wording in the future if it was considered to be necessary.
I'm with you lot too.
Keep agreeing with me.
Through you, Chair, it's not very difficult in a committee of this size to work out where the majority does or doesn't lie, and if it's 3 against 3, then or 3 against I don't know how many, it might be difficult to reach a consensus. I can, upon instruction, take this back to the leader for further another report, but the governance committee has had the opportunity and can, if it wishes to, and it can still vote to do it, make a recommendation to council which would have this debate, because this committee doesn't make the decision. But this is the Councillor Haslam point and Councillor Stretfield point. It does recommend to another body. It's just not an advisory committee. So those options are available. So do nothing, ask me to come back in January, or send it up to council for this debate to happen there.
Councillor Shay.
Can I just get some clarification, please, on the recommendations in the paper? So we've got 3 options before us rather than a single motion to say yes or no to, as I understand it. The third one, that it be recommended to council that the procedures be abandoned and deleted from the constitution with immediate effect. Does that encompass?
You're on the.
I'm on the
different
next
paper.
one. That's
Yeah,
that's why I'm
page
confused.
11.
Do you know, I even
Councillor Shay.
colour coded that so that wouldn't do it.
But
Sorry.
there are still 3 recommendations to this one.
Give me a moment.
Councillor Haslam, did you want to? Well, Councillor Shay's thinking about it.
I'd love to, but I need to recall the thought process that I was in. I think the thought process that I had was that if we did make this recommendation, and looking at the papers, that the recommendations to council that the amendments part 2 are set out, they be approved. There is no reason at full council that a motion couldn't be created, if I use the correct terminology, to change that recommendation at the council.
So we can either, it says we can either recommend to the council to debate, or we can approve it at this meeting. Is that right?
That's
No.
not I
Recommendation to council. Ah, yes, no, sorry, it is one recommendation to council, yes. So we recommend to council that it be approved, or we don't. Simple as that. Councillor Manston, can I take you next?
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask a question to you, Martin, through Chair? I'm interested to know whether your opinion is, if this change were to go through, would any of the motions that or questions we've had so far or in the last year not have gone through, please?
It's a difficult question because, through you, Chair, because first of all, I'm not the chief executive, so it wouldn't be my decision. I think there's a possibility that the motion related to, as I recall, related to banking at the last council may not have been included. So that may be an example, I would say. I cannot remember another. That's not to say there wasn't another. And also, I am not the chief executive, and the decision would not be with me. I would advise, but I wouldn't make the decision.
Councillor Stretfield.
Thank you. There was a proposal from Councillor Clack, which I rather jokingly said I would second, but I think he was serious, and I was relatively serious about supporting it, because I think the debate has shown here that what hasn't been answered is why, and would really like to hear from the leader about why this is in the best interest of good governance of the council.
Councillor Clack, would you like to?
No, I was just going to say, so in 2024, there was a motion which was calling for a ceasefire in Israel, and I know it eventually got amended, but for suspending Israel from international sports and events, music events. So it's that kind of thing that I want to try and avoid. But if this wording doesn't avoid that, then it seems to me it's got every good. It may not have the intention I want it to have, but for me, it had every good intention. But if it doesn't actually manage that, then we probably need to go back to the drawing board and come up with something which does manage that. So I think, regretfully, I think we should go back to the drawing board and
in parlance that we use, that the matter be deferred to the January meeting for further information.
Yes. Councillor Haslam.
So without wanting to be disingenuous here, can we not just approve this wording with the intention of having it changed at full council? Because of the fact that it's not, well, we're not proposing it. It was given to us. If we ask for it to be rewritten and then.
Yes, go on.
So that is an option for sure. What I would say is that we do actually have a motion now, so that would go first, which is essentially a deferral. If that's lost, then we'll have a different recommendation, I'm sure. That is or was an option, yes.
I think Councillor Clack's got a good point on. So the motion he mentioned, it still came through, although you would feel, Councillor Clack would feel that it didn't have anything to do with the district. So how did it get through is the question, and would we need a slightly different wording in maybe 20.3? We don't maybe don't need to add a 20.5, but maybe a sort of something stronger in 20.3 to put some weight bulk into that.
Well, to answer the question, to my knowledge, we have never allowed an illegal, irregular or improper motion. I'd make no other comment.
I'm sorry, I'm not suggesting that you have. I'm just saying that I've said in the past that I don't think that's abides by the Constitution, and I've been told it has.
Okay, can I bring in Councillor White? Hasn't spoken yet.
Obviously, I'm a substitute here. It's the first time on governance. I'm trying to take in everybody's views. I'm divided, or maybe combined, that Councillor Clack's comments and Councillor Haslam's comments need to be combined together. And I think just for efficiency, we need to get this through the process sooner rather than later. Waiting for January just seems too long. So I kind of agree with the comments from Councillor Stretford, Councillor Clack, and then added onto Councillor Haslam that it goes through to council for them to approve, so it's quicker and more time efficient. Otherwise, we're just going to get potentially other motions coming through between now and January that we don't agree with, that we're wasting too much time debating on. Get it sorted.
Councillor, oh God.
I've got a point of order,
Okay.
if I may. If I'm correct in saying this, we have a motion. It
Yes.
has been seconded. Surely we should be debating the motion.
Yes, through you, Chair, but I suppose you could say that what Councillor White had suggested was a reason to vote against that motion. But at the risk of going round in circles, maybe if we
Yes.
start to draw it to a close so that we can have that vote, and then we'll see what happens. Because there could yet be a division.
Or we debate that motion and just make sure that we understand what the motion is and then move forward, because we are going round in circles.
Okay, I'll take Councillor Manston at last, and then if Councillor Clack can read his motion out, so we're clear what it says. So Councillor Manston, would you like to just make one quick point?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to urge members to really carefully consider this motion, because I think that I feel this conversation has shown that the Constitution is already sufficient, and that since no motions have come through which have been improper, then it's unlikely to have any consequence by changing it, and therefore returning and working on wording for longer, I believe, is a real waste of members' time. So I would like to really urge members against spending more time trying to change the word to prevent motions being discussed. Thank you.
Councillor Clack.
Well, the difficulty is I don't know if that's now changed my mind the other way. So I mean, ultimately, can I speak, or do I just have to put the motion? Can I say?
Well, can you say what the motion was? But then,
Okay. Although, so the motion is that we defer this to the January meeting for amended wording to be presented to the committee.
Councillor Stretford has seconded that. So do you want to then just quickly say why you feel that should be the case?
Right. Well, I thought it should be the case because the fact is, if there's been no improper motions, then our constitution needs to change, because personally I felt there was some that, or one or two that shouldn't have happened. So therefore, I am convinced that we do need a change. I just don't think this change does it. So therefore, hence my suggestion to defer it. The only thing is, Councillor Haslam raises a good point, which is we could make our full council meeting even longer and ask the leader to come up with an amended Would he have to come up with does he still have to come up with the same wording because it's come through this committee, or can he then put forward a stronger wording?
That's an interesting point. His motion is his motion, so technically he would be able to move whatever he liked, but I don't think he would. And the governance committee recommendation would be minuted. It would be in the papers. My report wouldn't have changed apart from the header. So it would be quite obvious what had happened. And we've had that situation before, particularly prior to 2023, where something just needed to be tidied up and it went through, and I don't suppose anyone noticed. But what I would suggest through you, Chair, is if we're getting to the situation where members even here, 6 or so, 7, 6, they can't agree, then I suspect we're not in the kind of position that's going to be happy at council doing that.
Councillor Haslam.
So just to add another spanner in the works, so we're in June 2026.
Mhm.
There will be an announcement in July.
Mhm.
There'll be a statutory change order, if I'm correct, use the correct terminology, in September, which will have fundamentally changed everything. And if this goes into January, this will be done for 15 months. Is it really worth it?
Let's defer. Stick to my motion.
Okay. Right. So let's have a vote on deferral. Right. Councillor Clack has convinced me that he wants to carry on with this motion. Let's put it to bed, have a vote, and then see where we are. So who's in favour of Councillor Clack's deferral? 5. Those against? 1. So deferral it is to the next January meeting. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Haslam.
Sorry to ask another
Yes.
question. That doesn't stop us having an extraordinary governance meeting between that time, though, does it, if it's requested? Not that I'm going to ask for one.
Through you, Chair, may not be quite as easy as would be for a council meeting, something like a council meeting or a cabinet. Usually the nature of the business is fundamental. Governance meeting, we're already in the day today, as we're not an afterthought, but we're not considered really the primary committees. So it seems unlikely, but again, technically it is possible, yes.
Alternatively, you could bring a motion to the next full council meeting. If you really wanted to spend time debating it. Okay, let's move on to item 6, review of the procedures on substitutions. Martin.
And this is the one which does have three options to it.
Does, yes.
So the choice is yours, members. I know there are split opinions on this as well. So I'll summarize. You can do nothing at all and just keep going as we are, or delete the substitutes provisions, get rid of substitutions, return to the status quo ante, or to amend the rules and substitutes, and that's where we probably end up writing wording if we end up thinking that's a good idea. This is a report that had to be brought back anyway, so it was always said that we would review. So nobody's asked me to bring this, I don't think, and I would have brought it anyway. So members, please do review your substitutes provisions.
Councillor Shay.
Thank you. I had a question reading this paragraph 3. You talk about member feedback on the policy having been mixed. That's presumably informally received feedback. I don't recall having seen a member's question out to ask for feedback, and I hadn't heard of it through group leaders. Is that correct?
Yes. Now, it's possible that I could do an email and ask for some kind of MailChimp thing. sometimes opinions vary on what's happened at that previous meeting. Yes, informally, I've heard every opinion.
Then if I may follow up on that, thank you. That's useful to understand. And I'm sure you hear the views from across the board. My view is that there isn't a need for change. I think this is working broadly well. I think it is useful to ensure that committees can be quorate. There are good safeguards in place about substituting and not affecting the status of those who are on scrutiny, for example. I think that's important and it's well done. And I welcome the chance to be able to support colleagues who are unable to attend anything and to be supported likewise. So I think it works well. I'm comfortable with it.
Councillor Manston.
Thank you, Chair. I have one, so I mean, I do support the concept of substitutes. I have one concern with the wording in the papers, which is the part that says once substituted at the meeting, the ordinary member will not be entitled to vote or speak at the meeting, online or in person, and if attending in person, should not sit amongst participating members. And the reason I have an issue with this is if you imagine two people, there's a usual member of the committee and a person in their party who they wish to substitute them. When the usual member attends the committee, the other person is able to, at the chair's discretion, speak, about in that debate. So therefore, both members of that party are able to contribute. With this wording saying that they are entitled to, not entitled to vote or speak, that's reducing democracy by only allowing one of those members to speak. So whilst I wholeheartedly agree that the person being substitute shouldn't be able to vote, that would be improper, I don't think that it's right to stop them having the same rights as an unsubstituted member, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Councillor Stretfield.
It's a question rather than a point at this stage. I may be confusing KCC constitution with Sevenoaks District Council constitution, but is it not within the discretion of the chair whether any other member who attends the committee has the ability to speak? So why would the amendment say specifically highlight it was the substitute who wasn't allowed to speak? If any member, if they suddenly found themselves available and wanted to speak on the subject, could, at the discretion of the chair, which was the previous form of words, be allowed to speak. It seems slightly counterintuitive. Am I right in thinking that is true? The chair has the ability to call a member. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, I think I muted you somehow. I don't know, but the question was well made. So at the present time, the chairman can call any member as a visitor to speak or refuse, and I have seen that recently as well. So yes, that's true, but there's a possibility of an allegation, if you like, in this informal feedback I've received, that there may be a question of double representation. Not that I've known it happen, so I would reinforce I am not accusing anyone of anything. But if you were a group of, three members on a committee and all three substituted, but the substituted members all turned up, you could end up with 6 voices. So it's to guard against that and to take the weight off the chairman. But the chairman could always say no, yes.
You come back, yes.
Yeah, and further to that, it would be perfectly possible for other interested members from other parties who wanted to turn up and be allowed to speak. So the fact that the substituted member who usually sits on the committee has managed to turn up, I would imagine the chair would want to get the benefit of their expertise in the subject area, even though they weren't allowed to vote, because they would know the subjects that the the advisory committee was talking about. And likewise, any other member who turned up who had a particular interest, who wasn't typically allowed to be on the committee, might also be allowed to speak and not vote because we'd want their voice.
Councillor Clack.
I think I was going to agree with Councillor Manston in one respect. So the wording in paragraph 5, which says the ordinary member will not be entitled to vote or speak at the meeting, obviously we agree they shouldn't be able to vote once they're substituted or speak at the meeting. But I mean, that is the point, is that the chairman has got the discretion to allow someone else to speak. Would this wording, so sorry, another question, would this wording within paragraph 5, where it says they're not entitled to speak, do we need to amend that to say, unless with, other than with the chairman's discretion, or does it not need to say that because it's always the chairman's discretion? But it might be better to make it clearer.
Through you, Chair. So the paragraph takes away the discretion. So the paragraph basically says the chairman can't allow them to speak.
I think then that doesn't totally make sense, because if you've got it the other way around, that someone can come along and ask for the chairman's permission, it does seem to then be a bit odd that the member can't ask for the permission. So I would suggest that would, in my opinion, and I'm open to what other people say, is that maybe we should look to amend that to enable the chairman's discretion, because otherwise, as I said, it means then non-members can come along and speak, but a member who isn't sitting can't speak.
May I? So if, through you, Chair, just to say, so at the moment, the situation is as you want it to be. So no change is what Councillor Clack just spoke towards, at least in that regard. Councillors Branston, Shea and Stretfield have also spoken towards no change. But there may be other changes those members or others want to make. But yes, absolutely. If Councillor Clack is minded to make no change in that regard, you can still make other changes.
Councillor Haslam.
Yeah, sorry, my hand's been up quite
Sorry.
after Councillor Shea.
Yes.
I've been waiting to speak since then, so getting a little anxious there, because I've brain like a sieve, and more stuff comes in, my thoughts go out. I have made representations formally that I'm not happy with the substitution policy, both in this meeting and privately as well. I'm not sure I've done it in scrutiny as well, but I have had that. And one of those, so if I'm looking at what we're discussing here, and I'm getting more excited about what's going on, what I can't, I'm sort of trying to get around in my head is, if you substituted someone for yourself at a meeting, why would you turn up? That's the idea of the substitutions, that you put a substitution in place to replace you, not to, well, I'm going to be late or whatever. It's a substitute. It's not a placeholder. Why would you swap? Yeah, and this is regards to the proportional setup of the council. If you've got someone in the chamber, and then you've got the member who's substituted online as well, you haven't got the proportionality there, and you've got two voices, which is fundamentally wrong regarding the democratic proportionality of the council. And I feel very, very strongly about that. That's why I quite happily state that I have objected, and I object now to the substitution policy again.
Councillor Manston.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to point out one of the reasons, because Councillor Haslam's asked a very good question then, why would you do that? So I just would like to let you know why I've done it, to help you understand. So I have sent a substitution when I've been unable to attend because of childcare. However, my children are old enough to go and play in their bedrooms, and I can fully attend a meeting online. And I want to stay up to date with what's happening in committees that I'm on. I want to contribute where possible, but I can't physically be there if my childcare's gone. So that's why I've sent a substitution. But to your point about double representation, it really isn't double because, as has been explained, other members are quite capable of coming to any committee and with the chair's discretion to speak. So it's not doubling. The only difference in representation is to put this amendment in when it will be halving representation. Thank you.
Councillor Stretfield.
I think Councillor Haslam's anger is misdirected because there will only be the number of votes of the committee in proportion to on any subject. And what we're seeking to do is to maintain that proportionality as best we can, as well as getting the benefit of all the expertise from across the council. So the votes will remain in proportionality in any committee. The substitute will deliver the vote as he or she sees fit or they see fit. And the committee will get the benefit of any member's experience, not the person who was substituted, but it could be that person, but from across the political parties. And that could be double, triple, quadruple numbers of voices who want to contribute to that item. And that will be at the discretion of the chair, so that if there is some kind of spurious or feeling that it's being abused, the chair does have the right to refuse that person to speak. But by and large, because we are responsible councillors, most chairs, I feel, would be in a position to say, yes, please speak, and then intervene and say, no, that's either not relevant or it's a political point or whatever, and manage the meeting so as that you get all of the benefit and none of the harm that Councillor Haslam rightly points out. If he was given an extra vote or an extra kind of, that there was only ever the substitute that came in and was talking all the time, and it wasn't for the good reasons that Councillor Manston has put out in that you're trying to encourage maximum flexibility and maximum benefit to the council. I think our current substitutes policy does that very effectively, and it delivers the discretion to stop abuse by the chair. So I don't see the need for the substitute policy to change. I'm going to support for the second time this afternoon Councillor Clack with a no change.
Councillor Haslam.
If I've come across as being angry, what I'm holding is not anger, it's frustration. And I think that some instances here we're getting confused between member participation and substitution, because any member can participate, as I understand it, through Zoom, even if they're not part of the committee. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair, at present, with discretion, the discretion of the chairman, because a visiting member couldn't vote anyway, and a visiting member hasn't got the right to speak. If a member turns up on Zoom, it's the same effect. If somebody is somehow barred from participating, we probably would recommend they watch on YouTube instead. But I don't think, I think your point is your point. I don't think that changes it at all. I have noted that Councillor Haslam is somebody who would like to abandon the substitutions process, and that Councillors Shea, Manston and Stretfield have spoken in favour of the process as is at the present time. And I think we're about to hear from Councillors Clack, possibly White and you.
Councillor Clack.
Well, I just thought I'd better move on to point 6, because I mean, we're not just discussing 5, are we? Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, before you do, Councillor Haslam, do you have a point on the one we're talking about at the moment?
I'll have to tell you, say it before you can decide, because I don't know the answer. My point is that being the chair of scrutiny and the separation from advisory committees and the scrutiny committee, there is another aspect to this, in that we look to have a Chinese wall where members of the advisory committees do not sit on scrutiny. That's why I have to raise the question now, because that has an impact to what we're saying and the substitution policy that we have at the moment. And I with a very heavy heart wasn't able to I chose, because I'll take responsibility for what I did. I chose not to let Councillor Shea speak at the special, although I was open to it, but because of the guidance that I've been given and I'm following because of the Constitution, say, right, this is what, that I've understood it the way that the rules should work, and I will look to set, can be consistent with that. And that's where it was, wasn't a choice that I wanted to make, but it's one I did make. And again, I'm responsible for that. So it's taking that into consideration in the conversations we have at the moment still needs to be borne in mind.
I'll come to Councillor Clack first.
No, I'm happy to wait.
Councillor Shane?
I think that was your right as chair. Your role as chair was to manage the meeting, and that was the way. I would have loved to be able to speak at that meeting, of course, that. But your role as chair was to manage that meeting in the way that you saw fit within the Constitution, and it allows you to do it. And I wasn't there as a substitute. I was there as a member outside of the committee, hoping to have the opportunity to express an opinion. It was a complicated agenda, so I don't think there is a problem in this policy as we have it set out on substitutions that gives us a problem in that. And I think you're right absolutely about the Chinese walls and the need for that, and ensuring that scrutiny setup is able to operate effectively, conscientiously, and without any leakage from the other committees, for want of a better phrase. So I think you have that. I think that protection is there in this substitution committee, that you can't substitute onto committees if you're on scrutiny, for example, and the leaders of the groups all know that, and I'm sure respond accordingly. So I think that protection is good. I think that the chair, if there's work to do around how chairs use it, then maybe there's an opportunity for a bit of coaching and thinking amongst chairs as to how they manage that. But I'm not seeing that by and large. So I think we have something here which is working quite well. It's quite young as a process, this substitution process. So there is still some learning going on about how this works and adapting. I think it works fairly well. I understand your concerns, but I think it is working well in allowing the council to be flexible, to meet all members' needs, to be inclusive, and to ensure that there is that proportionality throughout the activities. Thank you.
Can I just ask, I've heard the term Chinese walls twice now. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with it. Would it be possible for anyone to reposition that, please?
I think we tend to use the word information barrier now, but I think we know what it means.
Thank you. I'll stand corrected on that. Yeah.
Councillor Haslam, did you want to just quickly respond, and then we'll move on to Councillor Clack?
Yes, I have a comment to make. The Councillor Kitchener, before he regretfully left us, I don't want to understate that, because it's obviously really quite a shocking and sad thing, is he was in his role as scrutiny chair before me, was in conversation with the officers and with other people with regard to not say reinforcing, but advising the information barriers. Is that the word I need to remember? The 2 words I need to remember. The information barriers required to maintain a separate scrutiny committee, and as part of that, I think it was Jim Carrington West wrote to the committee chairs, and I asked him to extend that out to the group leaders as well, reminding people that that was the case. That may not be public knowledge for everybody else here because of the fact that it was only sent out to not the whole council, but to parts of that. So that's another reason why I can say that it's come through as a.
Can I move to Councillor Clack, because he's been waiting for quite some time? Sorry, that's fine.
I was just going to say on point 6, and
Yes.
just for information's sake, I didn't actually vote for substitutions when that vote went through. So I'm just putting it out there that whilst I'm pretty happy. I'm content with 6. The only thing I would say, because it says not to be substituted more than twice, which is fine when we have the advisory committees, etc., when there's only 4 meetings, 5 meetings, a year. I just put it out there that, of course, when it comes to the planning development control, whatever it's called, what's it called?
Develop-
DMC. Yeah, I'm still under the old letters. They of course potentially meet 24 times a year. So, you know, I think maybe I'm just putting it out there that were we to be minded to push this through, which I am, but I'm thinking that if we've got the principle of substitutes, which I didn't vote for, but if we've got them, then we ought to balance that up so that the people on DMC get more than two hits, because you go off on a holiday for a fortnight just over, or Thursday to Thursday, and you've missed 2 meetings.
Can I come to Councillor Stretfield first, then Councillor Hudson?
I think information barrier is a poor substitute for the previous way of describing the situation, simply because that gives the idea that you shouldn't get the information at all from people who are not on the committee. Whereas, and I have some experience of this as chair of the scrutiny committee at KCC, the one thing you do want to hear from is people who have got real, and this is for the benefit of the committee, not for the chair, the people who are deeply involved and have expertise in the areas that you are scrutinising. And if that happens to be another member or a member of the public, then you, with the kind of control that the chair can operate under, or the discretion the chair has to operate, you can control pretty carefully what is said and what is not said, and get the benefit of all of those bits of information. So I don't think the information barrier issue should be the reason I raise all of that is because I don't think it should weigh into the balance of the substitutes argument. It is an important thing that the individual members should not be on the scrutiny committee with a vote, so they've got no interest that is contravened by being on a committee and on the scrutiny committee. But there is no reason at all why members of advisory committees who are expert in, or some experts in the area, or at least knowledgeable in the areas that they have, shouldn't be able to speak in a scrutiny committee. So I think that's my point about this, is that we don't want to weigh those things into the balance of the substitutes argument. And I think the points that Councillor Clack just made in relation to DMC are well made, and I think the proposed qualification argument in DMC is more important. That stipulation is a more important one than the substitutes argument, and is being reasonably well enforced, and is working well with regard to substitutes in DMC, as long as people have obviously read the paperwork. So still change.
Councillor Haslam.
So just to come back to Councillor Stretfield, my understanding with this is the issue is not advisory committee members coming to scrutiny to provide their knowledge and information. It is scrutiny members going on to advisory committees and looking to influence the advisory committees, because then you lose the independence of the advisory or the scrutiny committee. And it's that way round rather than that is the focus of it. However, what I would like to do, based on Councillor Clack's comment before, I'd like to make, I think, a motion to say, can we change item 6 to include the comment about DMC attendance being more than 2, or exclude DMC from that comment?
Martin.
Please.
Thank you.
Well, if
all
someone would like to second that, if I can do that, please.
Okay, perhaps I could just explain that. Obviously, sorry, yes.
Does anyone want to second that? Item 6 to not to include DMC in that. policy.
I mean, by excluding it means we don't, well, I mean, you could say 2 is arbitrary, but you don't know exactly how many meetings there are. By excluding it, then that means we don't have to trouble ourselves arguing over how many meetings is going to be the right number. So perhaps we just simply exclude DMC and have it just for the others.
Councillor Shay, you'd like to? Oh, okay.
It's, are there committees where more than twice the same member has been substituted over whatever it is, in the same municipal year so far?
Well, I think, well,
Well-
so far it's difficult, isn't it? Because so far it's from May the 14th. So you mean since the substitute, through you, Chair, I understand, or I'm anecdotally led to believe so. I haven't done the maths. I think so, yes. I don't think it'd be too difficult to find. But usually I'd imagine through sickness or something like that.
There's two aspects to that. One is, sorry, as a point of information, whether it was through sickness and therefore a good reason for substitution, or whether we think that whether the governance committee then think there's some kind of gaming of the system in order to substitute, or but what I'm getting as a result of point of information is it sounds like there isn't granular detail of whether we've got a problem with generally the system is working as intended.
Can I give my view? Because you've all spoken. I am quite in favour of substitutes as well. Obviously, being a previous councillor elsewhere, it seemed to work very well. I think here the difference here is because we get a lot of councillors turning up who aren't on the committee who want to speak. So I think that's made it a bit more of a grey area. So my view was that the whole point of substitutions was if you can't be there, you ask someone to go in your place. So I think that's where the confusion is. Oh, why has a member who's asked to be substituted turned up? And I think that's why I think some members are feel a bit confused about the whole issue of substitutions. I understand Councillor Manson's points. That's fair enough. You want to have someone to vote on your behalf, but you also want to say something. Again, it's unusual that we have so many people just turning up to a committee and wanting to ask questions. And the chairs in the main have been very generous in their allowing other members to speak, and that's their discretion. I'm sort of ambivalent on that one. The one item 6, I do disagree with Councillor Clack on this. I think as councillors we're none of us are experts in any of this area of work. That's what the officers are there for. We learn as we go. When we first come as a councillor, we're learning, but we should have a view on pretty much all the work that we do in the council. So because our residents will be asking us questions. So I think it's completely healthy to substitute on any committee as many times as you want, because that's the way you learn. And also you bring a different perspective to maybe those committee councillors who have been on there a long time. So I have a completely different view to Councillor Clack on point 6. So I think what we've got to decide, so we've had a very good debate. We've got to decide, we've got 3 different options. We carry on as we are. We take on one or both of the amendments. Or what was the other option? 3 different options.
Abandon.
Or abandoning, yes. So, yes. Martin, yes, please.
And I understand that Councillor Haslam has his hand up. I must admit I wasn't sure whether somebody had seconded Councillor Haslam's motion or not.
No.
So I'm sure that from what I've heard, it sounds to me like Councillor Stretfield, Councillor Shea and Councillor Manston are content as things are. Councillor Haslam isn't, and would like not to have the substitutes provisions any longer. And Councillor Clack would be happy to keep the rules as they are, but with the addition of a new 6, but with a change to, so an amendment to the amendment. I think, and also bearing in mind that you have your own view, somehow we need to formulate a proposal that encapsulates the consensus or the majority.
Mm.
And that will be done by a vote and a motion.
Sorry.
Councillor Shay.
Thank you. I would just like to pick up on point 6, if I may, briefly, which is that I understand the anxiety around repeated substitutions, but I think your point is well made about the flexibility and the engagement of members. I think we're very fortunate that we have members who are engaged across the piece, and there'll be many councils who would be trying to drag councillors out to get to meetings. So I think perhaps we're lucky in that respect. I'm also conscious that there are a number of members who are unable to attend over a very long period at the moment, who are being substituted for. And I think if we were to go with this, inserting this paragraph, it would prevent us from being able to have those seats filled, which would be unfortunate. And it's a provision which ensures that we ensure the proportionality in all of our work. And I think that is important for us and for residents. So I would be reluctant to see paragraph 6 inserted for that reason. And as I said earlier, I think this is a very young provision and there'll be time for review again in another year or so. And for that reason, I would like to suggest that we vote on report being noted and no further action taken as outlined in the recommendation.
Do I have a seconder for that? Oh, yes, 3 seconders. Councillor Haslam, do you want to?
Sorry, I had 2 things. One was to challenge your, not say assumption, statement that you can only gain experience by substitution. We record all of the meetings and they can be reviewed at your leisure. That is, in my opinion, whilst it isn't the same, because it isn't about participating in the debate, it allows people to gain that experience anyway. So I don't think that we can use, we shouldn't use that as a reason for maintaining the substitution policy, because I think that statement in itself is flawed. Without, not. The other thing is that 6 as it is, without in addition to the DMC, there should be something. Again, I wouldn't be happy with it without long-term help. But if we're going down the route that we leave everything as it is without change, we don't have to amend it and we can just go home, which I'll be very happy to. Today.
Does anyone else want to say something on the motion that the report be noted, no further action taken before we take a vote? Councillor White, did I see your hand?
You did. It's been a very interesting discussion. I thought this was a fairly simple proposal. We've seemed to have gone round the houses and introduced slight elements which I don't think was relevant for the discussion of substitutions. So I feel that the substitution process has worked well. Yes, you can view the discussions. Yes, you can be here. Yes, it's down to the chair whether or not you talk or not. Councillor Shay doesn't seem to have been offended or particularly aggrieved about not being able to speak at the previous occasion. So she wasn't a substitute as far as I can understand the conversation. She was a member, so I'm not so sure that was relevant to the point being raised. And yes, I'd like to get to the vote and get this over and done with as a substitute that is often asked to come along. So yeah.
Thank you, Councillor White. You quite often find that constitutional matters do take quite a long time to discuss and debate, for no benefit to the residents. So moving on from that, can we vote for? Yeah. So those in favour of the report to be noted and no further action taken. 1, 2, 3, 5, 4. Those against? 1. That's motion is carried. Thank you very much. There's nothing on the agenda, but Martin may want to just talk about the work plan, which isn't on there, and the meeting obviously is quite a long way away, but if you'd like to say a quick something.
But just so next time we'll have the report come back about motions. There was in the previous meeting a discussion of a local government reorganisation impact on governance item. There wasn't any information for a report, but I will speak to the Assistant Chief Executive about that. As we wind down, I'll have to have discussions with you about the need for a work plan. Whether you want a yearly plan plan every time or no plan at all.
Councillor Manston?
Thank you. I did notice that the work plan wasn't on the agenda,
Mhm.
but there are 4 items that I would like us to discuss as a committee. Should I raise them now?
You can, or you can talk to Martin, write to Martin if you like, or speak to him after the meeting.
Okay, well, I'll just literally very briefly say what they are, but
Yep.
without detail then, and
Yep.
then email Martin if that's
Yes.
okay. So one of them was to discuss language, the type of language that we use in the Constitution. I noticed Councillor Haslam earlier corrected himself, referring to him, and replaced that with they. I think in case there's a female version, and so that was one of them. And another was the governance remit of parish governance review, and whether we can look at that ahead of LGR to make sure our parish councils are effective and working great for residents. The third one was around Oh, sorry, I've jumped. The third one was around petitions. It's been said recently about whether we ought to recognise other petitions. So I think that's something we can have a look at updating. And the fourth one was consultative forums. There's a reference to Sevenoaks District Council Residents Panel, which I would like to go into a bit more detail about. Thank you.
Councillor Stretfield?
Yeah, just the questions at Cabinet,
Oh,
where
yes.
I think would be a good subject for the committee to have a look at. There've been, I think for the first time in this administration, there have been numbers of members turning up to be able to ask questions. And at the last Cabinet meeting, we had one question that the answer for which lasted a long time. And I think it would be helpful to guide members' expectations about how many questions would be anticipated to be answered in the time period allowed. Obviously, you can't dictate that, but also some guidance about what kinds of questions are appropriate, whether they're ones that could be sought from whether information could be sought from the administration outside of Cabinet, or whether they're of such urgency and relevance that a question is worth putting in public at relatively short notice, for which it is highly likely there won't be any reasonable answer in that time frame, but which it is good to hit for governance purposes, for the public to have heard the question is being answered, and that the administration will be getting onto it, and that the answer will be published in due course. Of course, that and if that guidance could be made public, then I think it would help both the administration and the opposition in our opposition parties to ask relevant questions that and not kind of go into the kind of big scripted response that we saw last time. Would be that was a rather long point, but if questions to the Cabinet could be discussed at the next meeting, that would be great.
Thank you. If there are no further points, questions, comments, I'd like to close the meeting, and thank you very much for your attendance and excellent